Hello, Omies, and welcome back in another episode of the Out of Our Minds podcast. How you feeling, Bella?
Fucking stoked.
Potty dance, potty dance.
I'm stoked. I just almost said I'm stoked. It's a combination of excited and stoked because
I love it.
our membership launched today.
Let's go.
This is-
I'm so excited.
It's so amazing. It's tell the people.
Guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, we'll leave the link below, but we launched our very first community offering, which we're so freaking pumped about, called the Omies Oasis. We have just been feeling so freaking inspired by all the messages that we get from you guys, and the community that's been growing around this podcast has been so magical to witness and to just see. Like, we literally have made so many friends from this podcast, and if you're listening and you know, like, we've been like chatting with you for a while. It's been such a beautiful journey of cultivating this beautiful community of listeners and Omies. So we decided to create a place where we can all gather and chat and connect and talk and tap into deeper wisdom and learning and expansion. And we have launched it today. It's called the Omies Oasis. If you guys are interested in checking it out, we'll leave the link below. There's all the information on the landing page, and you can come join. We already got a bunch of people in the community. We're chatting, we're introducing each other. It's amazing.
It's so fun.
What are your thoughts?
It's just such a great place. It's just one of those membership, one of those spaces. It's more than a membership. We're calling it an oasis for a reason. It's kind of like just that place where you can tap into for staying. You're on your path. You want the reminders of your power of being in a high frequency. You want to bounce ideas off of people. Like, you want to be able to tap in and see what other people are up to, their manifestation wins, and connect with us and be able to chat. And really, honestly, one of the things I'm most excited about is like the real time connection aspect of it, where there's more of an ability to literally like voice note you during the day and like share something that we've realized, share a learning, share like, you know, going deeper. If someone's like, hey, can you explain what you meant by the ego on episode 12? We can be like, yeah, here you go. And just being able to chat with you directly is a freaking dream, because this community is so special and so wonderful. And you guys are just cool people. Like, they're just dope, amazing humans that you just want to spend time with. So yeah, I'm just pumped to like drop into the oasis every day.
It's amazing. I already was like, I don't know, just reading all the introductions that are already going on in there, and like people sharing their wins of what's going on. I don't know if you read like Carrie's last message of what she posted. It's just so freaking cool to like stand side by side with people that are on a very similar frequency and journeying down this path of tapping into like your gifts and exploring the way that you could give back to the collective. I feel like a lot of the Omies are souls that are exploring like the ways that they can give back and the ways that they can tap deeper into their purpose and what they're meant to do in this lifetime. So it's really cool to stand side by side with people who are all on a very similar path. It's just incredible, and I'm so excited. So check out the link below. You could join us in there. We cannot wait to meet you and chat and hang out with you on our monthly calls. It's going to be freaking incredible. And yeah, we'll see you guys in the Oasis. What's up, guys? I'm Nikki.
I'm Bella, and this is the Out of Our Minds podcast, a playground for mystics and self-explorers to journey through the vast realms of the universe, cultural landscapes, and spiritual expansion.
Join us weekly as we dive into thought-provoking discussions that unveil the mysteries of existence and nurture the growth of our consciousness.
Today's episode is, I think this is actually one of my favorite kinds to do, where I feel like this happens a lot with us. One of us watches a video on something or shares a podcast or a post about something, and then we're both like, oh my God, yes, I have so many thoughts about this. And then we're like, boom, let's do a whole deep dive on it. So the premise of today's conversation is that we have been noticing, and I'm sure if you are at this point, I'm sure if you're listening, you've noticed this as well, that there's like different kinds of veils thinning, meaning the way that we have seen the world before, it's shifting. We're seeing through it. We're calling bullshit. We're just becoming so much better at seeing clearly into reality. And as that is happening on a collective and individual level, it kind of dips its toes into like different arenas. So this past week, I stumbled upon this video on YouTube that was basically, it was by this guy named James Smith, and it was titled The Downfall of Modern Podcasts. And on the thumbnail is just a picture of, I think, Stephen Bartlett from The Diary of a CEO, Andrew Huberman, and Joe Rogan. So like the big three, basically, of podcasting. Obviously, there's other like huge ones. And he basically did this whole video about how, as a consumer of a podcast, you start to get turned off when you feel like the podcast is becoming more of a business and it's caring more about money and ad revenue and like keeping the attention of the viewers and the listeners than it is about actually bringing you information and value. And that basically it's just starting to feel icky and annoying, and that people, I mean, presumably this guy I think is also drawing a connection that other people are sharing this sentiment, that they're just kind of like turned off by certain podcasts. But I think this applies very broadly to just the way that people are consuming information overall. So I shared this video with Nikki, and I thought it was very interesting. One, just because we're podcasters and we are kind of like in still the early stages of our show, and we hope to continue to grow it. But what's really interesting is kind of our approach to how we share information. And it made me really think about the sort of ethos and values behind what we do as, you know, creators and providers of information and guidance, and also as receivers, right? Because we both listen to a lot of podcasts. So that's like the overall premise of this. And then it kind of inspired us to think a lot deeper about the real, you know, energetic issue and like the problem that is showing as this symptom of people falling away from trusting podcasts so blindly, is the theme about becoming your own authority on your own life and like taking your fucking power back and not letting other people be the sole dictator of your life and your choices and who you are and what you do and your conditioning and all the things. And as I've thought about this issue, it's kind of become like this really interesting layered cake that has the top level of like, you know, feeling like, oh, all the experts are disagreeing with each other. And like this guy has had 90 different people on who are all talking about the same subject, but they all disagree with each other. Like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with that information? And that's like the symptom of it. And then as we go deeper, Nikki and I were just seeing how it's like so much more about your internal relationship to your own intuition, your own like critical thinking, your own knowing, and then how you are outsourcing that responsibility of knowing to other people. So I want to basically break down all these levels and ultimately help you figure out how to actually become your own authority, how to bring back, you know, basically take back your power that you've outsourced to other people to fix your problems for you, and to find the nuance in between of when it is important to tap into other people, when it is good to find a mentor, someone who can help you, you know, come back to your knowing, and all the nuances in between. So my first question is, Nikki, originally, what was like your first sort of reaction to either the James Smith video that I sent you, or just kind of like this overall topic of people kind of getting like a little icked out by certain podcasts?
It actually confirmed what I've been feeling. And I almost see it as like there's this split between the kinds of information and content and podcasts that are out there these days. It's like you have like the old paradigm type of Instagram profiles and businesses that are just, you could tell, like as soon as you connect with them, they're like, okay, this is a business. Like this is someone's way of making revenue, and as they should, like everyone has their way of making money, and our business is going to make us money one day and our personal businesses make us money. But it's just very clear. You can see who leads with different intentions. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, for example, with our podcast, like we had this intention of gathering people and community and connecting with other people that are on like this very similar wavelength. And we've always led with that kind of energy. And it also is another level of this where you have people who are like experts that are just sharing their information and telling you what to do. And then you have people that encourage you to tap deeper into your own authority and your own intuition. And I'm just like seeing very clearly the divide of these different types of, I don't know if it's like content creators or whatever you want to label them as. And with Diary of a CEO and other podcasts that I used to listen to The Skinny Confidential all the time. Like every week I would plug into like their new expert, skincare, health, finance. Like they have all these different experts on the podcast. And I stopped listening to it like a few months ago. I'll tap in like here and there, probably like one episode once a quarter. But I used to listen to that religiously to the point where it just got like, I'm like, how many experts can I hear talk about different ways of eating? I'm like, go vegan, fucking all you should eat is meat every day. Like, don't eat all of these things, eat all these things, eat dairy, don't eat dairy. Like it got old and overwhelming, to be honest. It was like just too much information overload. And I started to personally lean into thinning out my Instagram following list and thinning out the podcasts that I would plug into. And I started to intuitively get pulled towards the people that help me tap further into like my own authority and my own decision making. Like the people that are like telling you how to figure out what actually works for you with your diet and what figure out what feels best for you and all of that type of language and the narratives around optimizing your health and your life and all those things. So just to bring back to what I was saying initially, it's just I've become very clear of that divide, and I almost have like this mental way of like categorizing those two different types of like podcasts or businesses or whatever it is. And I feel like it is really coming down to the veil thinning, and you can just see the energy and intention that is behind someone producing something or doing something. So in this James Smith video, what we're referencing, he was saying that these podcasters will have experts on that have differing viewpoints on purpose to like cause controversy and to get people to talk in a way where it's heightening their engagement and leading to increased revenue streams on their end as a podcast business that has marketing sponsorships and all the things. So it's almost like this slimy way of taking something that feels like there was a positive intention to begin with, and now it's like, wait, what actually is your intention, your energy that's going behind you creating a podcast, for example? And with the veil thinning, you can just start to see the intention and the energy there. And I think that's what's becoming very clear to a lot of people, even without even realizing it. So when you sent me that video, I'm like, whoa, this confirms how I've been feeling. And it is exactly what you said. Like the veil is thinning, and you're going to see that within so many different aspects of reality. Like how I was telling you, I was at the gym and I was watching, they have all those TVs lined up with the numbers where you can match up your audio on the machine to watching a certain TV. And it's just news channel after news channel. And it's so funny to see them all lined up with like different little characters that are just like playing out different little roles with different opinions that are all opposing each other. And I'm like, wow, this is kind of like, now that I'm thinking about it now, it's kind of like the podcast with like all the different experts and the different opinions and like views on all these different things. And I'm just watching these little characters of newscasters with their little suits on, and they're like perfect little, like the females with like their hair that like flips on the side. And I'm like, this looks like The Simpsons. Like, it literally looks like an SNL skit. And I don't know if it's just people that are tapped into like awakening and seeing things from a new perspective that are able to feel that. But I look at someone that's like next to me on the treadmill watching the news. I'm like, is this like just going in their head? And it's all like, yep, this is truth. This is, yep.
Right.
Love watching this. Amazing. So yeah, the veil is thinning, and I think it's too obvious to ignore. That's my take on it.
Yeah. And I think like really what it is because the thing is that there's nothing inherently wrong with, for example, if you think about Joe Rogan, I actually think what has made him so successful is the fact that his like core reason for, at least like set aside like the ad thing, like the Spotify deal and the fact that there's still ads on the show and whatever, like it's obviously a podcast that makes him a lot of money. But I do think that his original authentic intention of just wanting to have interesting conversations is there, and is like, if you think about the difference in the packaging of Diary of a CEO versus Joe Rogan, it's like Joe Rogan's from the beginning, all his episodes are just the number episode and the name of the guest. It's never, ever, ever packaged in a way of like an enticing thumbnail, an enticing title, whatever. You can argue part of that is because he started the podcast when he was already famous, so he was able to have big people on and people would just want to go listen there. But then with Diary of a CEO, and I want to explain why I don't think like the conflicting experts is really an issue. I think it's more about the packaging, where it's like every episode is beastified, okay? And what I mean by that is like Mr. Beast YouTube is like a certain type of YouTubing where I think Mr. Beast does it fantastically, but then people try to copy it and it becomes like you make everything sensationalized and you make everything a breaking news fucking headline. So it's like 2 times a week, you're getting an episode that's like, you've been lied to about this, and these 3 things are gonna fix your relationship. This is why your boyfriend's gonna cheat on you. It's like every fucking week it's like that. And I feel like that is part of why people are getting sick of it, because it's like, okay, I'm not this like dumb consumer that just needs to be, it's like you're trying to buy my attention and I can tell. And I feel like that starts to get old really quickly. And that's where at first with Diary of a CEO, it was like, yeah, great. He's a great marketer. He knows how to package it up. And like, I genuinely enjoy listening to a lot of his conversations because he is a fantastic interviewer. He like has a way of getting like authenticity out of the guest. But when it comes to like some of the experts, it's like the packaging becomes just, you can see where he's being a marketer and not just like an authentic podcast conversation haver. And I yeah, point is with Diary of a CEO is just an example. It's like nuanced, and honestly, I genuinely, he's a fantastic podcaster, but I think it's just that like there are parts of it that feel like you're being marketed toward, and if you don't enjoy that feeling, it turns you off of it. The second thing is, to me, the problem is not that like experts in one field all disagree with each other. I actually think that that's good. I think that's normal. I think that's what is bound to happen when you have like a free market where people can research and come to their own opinions and like create their own expertise. The problem is that we've been conditioned to blindly trust someone who's labeled as an expert and to always adopt what they say. So it's like if you go into listening to Joe Rogan every week and you're more just having this like passenger consciousness of enjoying listening to different humans and their perspective, and oh, that's interesting that they think this, I actually completely disagree, but that's kind of cool to know that. That's a completely different energy than going to Diary of a CEO every week and thinking, Steven, solve my problems, present me the perfect expert that will speak to my pain points and never make me have issues again. That's the route where we've been brainwashed into outsourcing our knowing, and the responsibility of solving our problems is outsourced to other people. So then when Steven brings on an expert next week that disagrees, you get mad at him and the expert for saying conflicting things, when in reality, it's always been your responsibility to have discernment and to trust yourself to figure out what's right for you. And that's like the second layer. That's where people have not had a active role in deciding who they are, what they want to do, and like who they want to become.
I agree with what you're saying. I think I'm realizing listening to you that it's not that I disagree with having conflicting experts on. What I disagree with is taking exactly what they say and putting the thumbnail of like, this is ultimate truth.
Yes.
And then having the other conflicting person of, this is ultimate truth. How about this is someone sharing their expertise?
Yes.
And you get to feel into what feels right with you. Because I love listening to experts, but sometimes you have to know when to tap in and out of listening to experts. Like when you know that you are maybe lacking a little direction in some part of your life and you're looking for like inspiration and to feel into what feels right for you. Maybe you're like not feeling right with what it is that you're eating and you're starting to feel like bloated and inflamed, and you listen to an episode where someone's talking about like inflammation and like what foods cause inflammation. It's like using that expert as the avenue for you to feel into what resonates with you and what doesn't. And I think that's the key with it. It's not just outsourcing immediately and putting the blinders on. And I think what you're saying about like the passenger consciousness can also apply here. It's like being the passenger, not just like absorbing it all and being the actual information that you're you're hearing it and just deeming it as
Right.
truth right away.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's like important to know and notice the nuances here with it's really not black and white, and it just comes down to like tapping back into your body and feeling when it is you want to lean into something and notice how it makes your body feel. And yeah, I think that the topic of like critical thinking is also something that we could dive into here.
Yeah, the whole thing is that it's not there. It's like so interesting. I think part of this veil thinning idea is also just bringing more consciousness to everything that we do. So, like you're saying, with again, sometimes you do want to tap into a quote unquote expert to figure out, a solution or a new idea. Like, obviously, we should be exposing ourselves to new ideas, but it's like, you know, we have this culture where we feel like we don't ever know enough and we don't have the answer. And so that's where you get people like solely, like pedestalizing other people's information over themselves always, and there's never any questioning, and it's always blind trust. And that's something very, very
Mm.
much like that, was an original issue that we had during the pandemic, was mass levels of blind trust into ideologies where people never ever, reference their own intuition and their own critical thinking. It's just intuitive. It's like bringing both together, where you are imploring like structured thinking and reason and just thinking things through, and also having, giving yourself permission to be like, intuitively this just feels off in my body and I'm not, I'm just not into it right now. I'm just like not ready for it. And being, having the audacity to actually say that and listen to it. And as it relates to critical thinking, what's interesting is like when people bring up critical thinking, they think it will lead to everybody getting on the same page about all the information. That's a way that people use critical thinking, to actually like confirm their own ideologies, to be like, well, I used critical thinking to get to this viewpoint, so you need to agree with it too. That's the energy behind experts as well, who are like very like dogmatic about their findings and their research. And what I feel like is the more evolved version of critical thinking is the definition itself is to be able to see multiple, to look at a solution through to look at a problem through multiple perspectives, which means everybody is going to have a different perspective. And when you're thinking about a certain topic, to be able to see it from all the different points of view. And yes, like that's why people arrive at different, final points of logic and final answers. But this idea of critical thinking gets like weaponized in some ways, where the expert is like, I'm a scientist and I have critically thought about this, therefore like you must take on what I've said. And like, yes, sure, there's, you can argue about like objective truths and like research studies and whatever, but I feel like where we're evolving into is bringing back in intuition and like personal perspective, and like just checking in with ourselves to see if, even if someone else is like perfectly reasonable, satisfies logic, satisfies structured thinking, that even if after all that, like it doesn't pass your critical thinking or doesn't resonate with you, I feel like we need to just be okay with that. And it's like people are afraid of that because they think it will lead to like extremism, or like people just are going to have all sorts of wacky thoughts. But the point is, the opposite of that is where we get to what happened in the pandemic, and what is kind of like happening in these circles where people are just completely blindly trusting other people and never asking themselves, is it actually diminishes the presence of critical thinking in a society, and people start to become radicalized into like ideologies and into blindly trusting everyone and their mother except for themselves. And that's how our intuition gets eroded, and people place, only logic as the important thing, and intuition has no seat at the table.
So do you feel like people that are on like this path of accessing higher states of consciousness are more able to tap into critical thinking?
I think it can really help if you are kind of like starting to understand these concepts of like multidimensionality, duality, like that there's nuance, that you're not attached to your ideas, like your identity is not dependent on your opinions, like those types of spiritual truths really go hand in hand with being able to be more open-minded, which is essentially another aspect of critical thinking, is just being open to other perspectives. So that's why I think it's so tied together, and why it usually, like, one can lead to the other, because as you start questioning yourself and your meaning and existence and like your identity, that also starts to open up the ways that your mind works and the way that your mind makes connections. And that's where I think like natural open-mindedness can come from, that awakening, if you are seeing it as like a slow disentanglement of your identity from all the things that you thought you had to latch on to before. Because that's the other thing that stops people from, changing their mind or critically thinking, is that they're so tightly fused to their ideas, and they also feel only safe if an expert is like telling them what to do. And that's like a safety identity thing.
It's interesting you bring up like the safety around, okay, someone else said it, so now like this information must be true, and now I feel safe that there's like a definite bottom line.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're tapping into your intuition, it almost takes a level of developing that safety within yourself in order to even trust what's coming through your channel and the ideas you're receiving, or what your body or your intuition is telling you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like that's where the whole idea of like being your own authority, and it's like a level of not giving a fuck what other people think, because it takes a level of breaking from the tribe and breaking from, what everybody else is saying, to actually have the willingness to act on your intuition. Because oftentimes intuition doesn't like really quote unquote make sense. Like it's such a different feeling of having, like almost a piece of instruction or information drop into your mind and body that is not something you necessarily arrived at by like, if this then that logic, right? So that's why it does require being a bit of like a heretic in a way, of like doing things differently. And that's also another reason why I think it's all tied together, because the tribalism and like that heavy identification with groupthink is what stops people again from questioning themselves or their reality or whatever it is, and completely outsourcing that responsibility to other people. And you have to have like a level of, I literally don't give a fuck what other people are doing. I'm going to do what like works for me and come to my own conclusions. And like every great philosopher scientist before their time, before they were recognized, was like seen as a fucking heretic and was like crazy.
It also is reminding me of, I don't know what number episode it was, where we were talking about how regulating your nervous system will allow you to like even have that discernment and ability to critically think. And it all ties together. Like as I'm listening to you talk, I'm imagining someone who's not feeling safe in their body is obviously going to be more prone to outsourcing like their decision making to a force outside of themselves. And someone who feels safe in their body actually has the space and capacity to listen to information and to be able to even feel what it is like, and feel what it feels like in the body. And it's interesting to think about it from that energetic perspective of like when you consume a piece of information energetically in your body, if you're just accepting it as truth because you're such in a fear state and you don't even have the capacity to digest and to let it simmer, whereas someone who's feeling safe in their body has that space to do so. And I don't know, I'm like getting all this clarity around what we're talking about with the veil thinning. And I'm thinking about how in the last, I don't know if it's like 2 years, year and a half, we've been seeing this trend of authenticity first on social media. Like everyone's like authenticity. Like you have to be real. The rise of like very authentic user generated content vibe type of videos on TikTok is like the hottest thing. And I feel like it aligns with what we're talking about, because when someone's watching a very, I don't know if manipulative would be the right word, but when you're thinking about like those highly produced videos that are marketing focused, like marketing a product, and you could just like feel immediately, you're like, this feels icky. Like this feels not like, scroll next. I don't even want to watch this. And now we're so quickly noticing when things just don't feel authentic and real. And I would imagine that is because the veil is thinning and we're becoming more sensitive, and our vibration is rising and our consciousness is rising. And with that, we are taking in more information than we normally would have in the past. So having, let's say, when you're thinking about like an old commercial that you used to see as a child, just because we were young, maybe like, yeah, we would just watch the commercial, but even our parents, we were watching the same commercials, and it's like, yeah, like this is a commercial, that's a product, I'm probably going to go out and buy that product. But now when we're watching commercials, we're like, this is so cheesy, this is so tacky, like,
Right.
please, oh my God. And it's because we're taking in more information. Like when I'm watching that news channel at the gym, I'm feeling into the energy of the newscaster and how like constricted she feels and how inauthentic it feels. And there's just so much more data and information that I'm taking in that I'm able to see it from a completely new perspective. And I think that's where all of this really does connect with like the veil thinning, being more attuned to your intuition, critically thinking, like feeling safe in your body to be able to even say, no, that doesn't feel right with me, or I'm going to reject that information because it just doesn't even feel true in my body. Like all of this, I feel like is one web that connects.
Yes, totally. And what you just brought up is reminding me of, sorry, my bunny friend is back. He's so cute. Sorry, I have to say aside for people who are just listening, I literally have an obsession with bunnies, and there's ones that live in my backyard, and I made a whole fucking vlog about this one time that I befriended them. So every time they pop up in my view, I have to like look at them. Anyways, okay, what you just brought up is so perfect because I read this Substack piece yesterday that I don't know if this connection feels like a stretch, but you kind of just made it, which makes me feel like it is truly tied together. But I was reading this Substack piece written by this guy, Reginald Clay. Shout out Reginald. He's like this guy on, I like know this guy through Substack, and he like reached out and we like read each other's work. Anyway, he's really interesting. I'll link this article in the show notes. But he wrote this piece. It's actually about like self-discovery tools. So he's talking about human design and gene keys in it. But at the beginning, he makes this connection to quantum mechanics and the observation effect. And somehow it like made a connection in my mind about this topic. So I'll read this expert, and I'm really curious what you think about this, because it kind of ties in like this idea that you're talking about, which is about being an active participant in the person you're becoming, like an active, conscious participant in the things that you're consuming. So he's talking about how experimenting with human design and contemplating gene keys are fantastic ways to observe yourself. I recently read about the observation effect in quantum mechanics. Simply observing subatomic particles changes their behavior. Prior to observation, these particles exist in a state of superposition. They exist in probabilistic states. The aspect of the subatomic particle we choose to measure and observe takes form. It becomes defined, real in a sense. This is fascinating to me, and I don't understand how it works. Still, without the proficient knowledge of this science, there's an inherent understanding that observation is impactful. We are always watching one another, individually and collectively. Through our observations, we condition one another. It's natural, it's a consequence of our social nature. But if you aren't practicing some form of self-observation, then you are taking no part in shaping who you are. You're outsourcing this privilege to society. You will condition others, and you will be conditioned by others, but you will never define yourself. Through observation, you develop awareness, and through awareness, you evolve consciously. And then he says how human design and gene keys help you acknowledge and observe your personal evolution. You are permitted to choose what you will do with that ability, take an active part, or be a passive observer. I prefer the former.
I mean, yeah. Sorry, you say what you're going to say.
No, I just like when I read it and I made the connection between this idea of like how observing something changes it, and if you aren't actively like observing yourself and bringing consciousness to who you're becoming, other people will condition you.
It connects to everything that I have learned with the subconscious. Like your reality is a projection from your inner world, from your subconscious mind. And I think this connects because what he's saying is if you don't take the time to observe yourself, You're going to just simply allow society and your outdated programs to be the thing that is triggering the observation. Do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
you are
Yeah.
going to observe reality from a specific lens based on what it is programming you. So, for example, if you plug into a podcast every day that's like, the world is burning, everything's going to shit, fear, fear, fear. If you listen to that every single day and you're being programmed by that information, you're going to start perceiving reality through a specific lens, and that is going to manifest and create a very particular reality for you to experience. I don't know if this is what he's like saying with this, but if you don't take the time to observe what it is going on within your inner world, then what you observe and create is going to be just a straight manifestation of the things that are programming you.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And it's kind of just speaking to that idea of taking the authority back and being like, I am an active participant in who I'm becoming. And this really has a theme of becoming aware that, like, if you just blow by the wind and let other people make decisions for you, you are losing out on who you really are and who you want to be. And that's the whole reason why it's like becoming an authority of your own life. Like, authority literally means like how you would previously think of an authority figure, someone outside you who gets to dictate and tell you what to do. You have that capacity. And honestly, we've never been meant to outsource that. Like, we're not meant to let other people decide what is right for us. And that's why it feels icky to be marketed to in that gross way of being treated like just like a dumb consumer that, like, I need to just buy your attention with this slimy fucking thumbnail to get you to click in. Like, you're this, that's why it feels icky. Like, to me, I just start to feel like, no, I'm fucking more intelligent than that. Like, I can see, I'm capable of choosing what I would like to watch today. I'm capable of like looking at this and deciding what I want. And it's tough because like we dig ourselves into this hole where we do react to the like quick dopamine hits and like the juicy thumbnail and like the well packaged concept, you know? Like, we obviously think about the titles and the thumbnails and we try to make them fun and a little interesting, but it's like there's a level that it can get so out of hand that you're just disregarding like the humanity almost, and just literally looking at it as like, well, we have this advertiser that is, we told them we'd get 1 million impressions on every single episode, so up the sensationalism as much as you can on that thumbnail, and like, who cares if it's, you know, fucking a lie. Like, that's kind of what it starts to feel like.
I mean, think about how the news works. Like, the more blood they have to report on, the higher their ratings are.
Yeah.
Like, the death toll going, oh my God, do you remember during COVID when they would put like a little death toll thing on the corner of the screen? Am I making that up?
No, you're not.
Oh my God, this feels
a CNN
like
guy came out and said they were like, we purposefully put the death toll on there because it increases viewership.
Yeah. I mean, of course, people are like crippling with fear and they're like, what the fuck? What a weird time. What a weird time.
It's trippy.
There was something I wanted to say that connects to this guy's article and what you're saying about being your own authority. I feel like the number one way that you can stand as your own authority in your life is by tapping into your intuition to feel into your life path and what it is you're meant to do and what your journey is, because the opposite of this is actually looking at your reality and thinking that you need to then dictate your future based on what you're currently experiencing in reality. So let me give an example. Let's say someone's like not really tapped into their own authority and they're in a career that they don't like, and then they're like, okay, I just need to like apply to like this job. Oh, I didn't get this job. Oh, maybe like this job. And they're not looking at their reality as like a game that they can play with, that they can alter by going into their own inner world. Mm-hmm. So they're kind of like outsourcing the way that their life unfolds by just using reality as the roadmap. Do you get what I'm saying? So it's like, instead, the opposite of this would be someone tapping into their own authority, meditating, tapping into their intuition, feeling into what excites them, where they're being pulled in their life, and then seeing, okay, how can I start to lean into this in my life? And if there's a road bump or some sort of resistance that's popping up or some sort of challenge that is blocking them from walking down that path, then you look at that challenge as a reflection of something that's going on within yourself. And then that's where the inner work starts to get fun because you're like, ooh, this is a game. If that's a roadblock in my life, if I'm having troubles with maybe, I don't know, let's go back to the example of the person not getting the job. Like, how is this a reflection of something that's going on within my own subconscious? And I think that's like the top tier way of tapping into your own authority is to guide your life through your own inner power instead of thinking that, oh, life is just happening and I need to like be following the way that life is unfolding. It's like that quote that people will say like, oh, you'll call it fate, but it's really, I don't know the quote, I'm going to botch it, but it's really just your subconscious mind. Like people will look at their reality and call it fate when really it's just a manifestation of their subconscious. And you can always turn inwards to do the inner work of shifting the way that your reality is manifesting. Like everything is an inner game.
Yes.
And I think that's the number one way to tap into that.
Yeah, I wrote down like 3 different like levels of being your own authority, and that it starts with what you just said, the inner world, your intuition, your sense of self, like decision making, just literally becoming your own person and almost like hermiting a little bit so that you can actually figure out and discern who you really are and cut out a lot of the noise and stop letting all the externals dictate your life. And then the second level is like after you've, kind of come back to your inner world and reestablished it, then you start to come into like the second level, which would be social settings where you're like interacting with people. So you have to try to uphold your sense of self around other people. Like you maybe dip into their reality and see how it makes you feel. And then you reflect it back on who you are. Like you make those decisions to start doing your own thing. Say no to the plans that don't align. Like say yes to the edgy plan that you actually prefer over the thing that you always do. And you're kind of just like consciously choosing when to be a part of the pack and when you want to break from it. And then the third level is like the outer world, like the full on outer world, like educational institutions, career, like learning, health, like all the institutional authority figures. And because you've built this foundation of you being the authority of over your life, that then you stop blindly trusting all the like institutions and like all the people and things that try to exert power over you or tell you what to do. You use your critical thinking and discernment skills when you're like listening to something or like referencing an expert. And then this is what you were talking about, what you wanted to bring up about being in kind of like an energy reader to figure out who you want to trust and to then make the conscious decisions of like, okay, who do you want to have be your mentor to help you on this journey? Like what podcaster do you trust enough to tap into who you feel like has your best interest, even if they say something that doesn't apply to you, like that you feel enough, safe. I don't know if safe enough is the word, but you resonate enough to know that like you can tap into this person because their energy is open and they like ultimately want you to do what's best for them. So you can like observe without absorbing it.
Right. Yeah, it's knowing. I feel like for my own personal journey, when I think about those mentors and the people that I leaned on, the best healers and guides were always the people that taught me how to become my own guide and to become my own healer. Like when you are sitting down with a healer or a coach that's helping you get through to the other side with something, you should be able to take that exact process and then go do it on your own. And that's when you're able to almost like build this trust in yourself because you're gaining knowledge and wisdom on what works for you, whether it be what works when you are going through a challenging time. Okay, I worked with that one person and they taught me how to navigate the tough chapters in life. So now I know how to do that. Or you're working with, I don't know, an expert in like, let's say like going down the creative path and all those things and diving into your career journey, and they help you go down that path. Like the information that you get from that should be something that strengthens your connection to self.
Yeah.
And to feel into your body when you're consuming information or when you're with a guide or a coach with what resonates with you and what doesn't. Like, it doesn't all have to be just, okay, this is true, this is true. Like, feel into your body with what feels right for you. And I do really strongly believe that there is a time and place for experts, for coaches, for guides, for mentors, because it has been such a pivotal part of my own personal journey, and you as well. And I don't think I would be here right now if I didn't start listening to all those impact theory podcast episodes that I was listening to back in like 2017 that like started my whole personal development journey. But as you go down that path, you start to get more and more connected with the true essence of who you are, to the point where you start to realize the most helpful people and the most inspiring people were the ones who are actually just helping you get to know yourself more on a deeper level.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I feel like that's probably what people are craving now more is, again, there's obviously such importance for, I mean, we need each other. Like, obviously you don't exist in a silo. It's not to say like never, ever consider other people's perspective. Like, not at all. The whole point is that like we've the scale has become a bit lopsided in the pursuit of seeking very valuable information and guidance from others, has slipped into everybody else is a guru for you. You're never your own guru. Everybody else has the answers. You don't have the answers. The middle point is having like the strong sense of self, the intuition, the inner world in check, and then going out into the outer world and like checking it and bumping into other things and seeing how that makes you feel. And like the whole point is it's you're having something to like respond to in a way. Like, that's the whole point, is you actually then will find more confidence and feel better about the decisions that you're making when you bump them up against the outside world, right? Like, when you're trying to decide what's the right workout regimen for you, well, you get to say, okay, I really appreciate this expert and this person's perspective on working out. Like, they energetically feel correct for me. Now let me see how that feels. Oh, I completely disagree with it, with what they say, but that has something to do with like the information itself. It's just that it doesn't work for me. And then you move on, and then you like read a book on blank, and you're just having a more actual, like an actual filter on reality, instead of just running around like feeling like you're lost and that you need somebody to finally come and save you.
I feel like I have a good example in a way that you wouldn't think that this would be a good example, but Melissa Wood, when I do her workouts, you can tell, I think I've shared this before, you can tell she's like channeling as she's doing them, and it's just flow for her, as a lot of yoga teachers do. And but being in that energy, and I would view her as like a fitness guide in my journey, I guess. When I'm in a class, a virtual class, like watching a video of hers and doing the workout, I'm starting to realize that I'm actually gaining this mind-body connection to myself through her workouts that's allowing me to grab a mat and do something on my own without even watching her content. And I feel like that's when you know you have like a good fucking expert or guide.
Right.
Like when they help you strengthen your connection to yourself, and you're not just leaning on them and depending on them and outsourcing your whatever decision making or whatever it is that you're doing, and thinking that you need the person. They should be activating something within you that helps you go along on your path. And there's actually a thing that you should get to a point with a mentor that you work with where you like don't even want to like you get to a point, I don't know how to word this
you're like, I'm good, I got it, I want to go off and integrate.
Yeah, because you realize at first when you meet a mentor, you think that you need to like think like them and just do everything the way that they do. But just you absorbing information from them helps you tap into your individual truth, or the way that you want to. Let's say you're working with a coach that, I don't know, teaches you how to play basketball, and they have like a specific way of like to do a specific shot. And maybe that journey of working with them actually helps you hone in on your specific way of taking that shot. And then you get to a point where you're like, hey, I appreciate you and you have your thing and I have my thing, but I don't need you anymore.
Right.
And it's a very natural part of like the mentorship journey.
Yeah. Or I honestly think that those are the people that you actually continue to go back to, because it becomes so much more of it's like it's a more of an energetic exchange and like an activation of what you already have within, that it's less about having like, whether we're talking about a coach, a mentor, or even like a product or like a whatever it is, just like whatever entity that has helped you, that I think we actually return to the ones that satisfy the energetics of reminding us of our own power, right? Like I still tap into, you know, the same person's meditations on YouTube because like she's creating something within me. It's like a true energetic exchange of I'm getting something from you, you're getting, it's not necessarily that you're getting something from me, but it's like you're actually igniting. I'm almost thinking of it of like bartering or like trading. That's what the word I was like for, not bartering.
Yeah.
Where it's like you're exchanging goods with each other and it's like you're actually getting the sustained impact, and you will go back to those people and those places that like you actually want to like receive their services, but it's more than the service. It like activates something in you. And I feel like that's kind of what we're switching to, is like the places, the podcasts, the people, the products that feel so much more of like an equal, almost like circular exchange, and not just like, oh, like they just want my fucking money and goodbye, they don't care about me.
Yeah, I think I'm thinking of more like a mentorship role where someone is like, you're like shadowing someone for the exact role of like what they do. Yeah, like when you get to a point where you're like, I think I am good. Like you have taught me how to activate this within my own self.
Yes. Yeah, like you got to graduate at some point.
Yes. Yeah. That's what when I'm using the word mentor, I more so mean like a direct like.
Yes, because eventually, like the whole point is for you to like level up in a way that you then move on to needing different things in your life. Yeah, I think I'm curious to hear. I feel like both of us can share a little bit about this, but just like within this topic, there's such a theme of it's like just being your own person and like sailing your own way and learning to break from the pack in certain ways and just have that ability to like say yes and no according to your true sense of self and not the conditioned version of us and not the social pressure or the propaganda or whatever it is. And I'm kind of just curious to hear about like your, you know, like a mini version of your journey on that, and like if it's felt connected to what we've been talking about.
I think I'm still very much on that path of like saying no in social settings where you feel pressure, and it's an ever evolving process to continuously stand stronger in your own truth. And I think we're all on this journey in some capacity.
Yeah.
And you can think about the different areas of your life that will impact you in. I would say for me, the most pivotal part of me tapping into that truth and standing strong in what I believe in my own journey was when I walked away from my 9-to-5 job, because I was like looking around at this office and I'm like, this just doesn't feel right in my body. Like, what the fuck is going on here? And I couldn't ignore that. That was like so loud to the point I couldn't ignore it. And yeah, I think going down this path of like turning inwards and understanding yourself, that just becomes a byproduct. It's not something you have to like try to do.
Yeah.
It's just a natural byproduct of you learning more about yourself, to the point where maybe you learning about, let's say, for example, like people-pleasing tendencies, then that will help you in a social setting stand stronger in your truth and saying no to something that doesn't feel right for you. But like if you don't know yourself, then it's going to be like you just are going to outsource everything to other people.
Right.
So I feel like it is really just a byproduct of turning inwards and doing the work. And as you get like a stronger sense on who it is you are, then that projects outward in your reality.
Yeah. You kind of have just helped me made a visual connection with what you were saying about when you know yourself, then you don't have to you almost stop looking to other things to fill like a perceived void that you had, where a lot of times I feel like when you are in this place of being very just, you're just very much outsourcing the authority of like who you are and like who you're becoming and all the things to things outside of you, like the distractions basically, that then once you flip the switch, you are you're kind of like filling the cup of understanding, like, no, I actually really love doing this and I actually want to stop doing that and I actually like enjoy being, you know, off on my own doing blank, or I really like going for solo walks. Like you just start to increase this like almost list and reservoir of the things that bring you joy and the things that truly matter. And then that naturally,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like if there was like a cup and it was filled with like junk. And then the more that you fill it from your inner well, like the junk just falls out and you're just like, okay, I don't need that anymore. Like it's
Right.
gone. And I feel like that's the thing that almost happens effortlessly, where you don't necessarily have to try to like do your own thing. You're just doing it because you're in the flow of who you are, and you've like gone down the self-discovery and understood like your tendencies and your beliefs and your human design and your this and you're like, you're just starting to fill up with the sense of who you are, that then it gets naturally expressed out into the world.
Right. And a lot of people are still navigating from a life from the angle of doing what they think they should do, like working in the job that they think they should be in,
Right.
living in the location that they think they should live in, being with the partner they think they should be with. Like, and then you get to a point where you're like, who even made these decisions? Like,
Right.
what the fuck is going on? So I think the more in tune you are with yourself, your reality reflects that in every aspect of your life. And I think another thing that you and I were speaking about when we were talking about this topic before we started recording, I think yesterday when we were voice noting, is I said, like, I want to share with people that it's so important to get to the point where when you don't have an answer, like you're lacking direction in life or you don't know where to go, that your first initial reaction is to find stillness and find that
Yeah.
answer within yourself. And then to maybe seek the people that help you navigate that journey inwards, or whatever it is that's going to help you get that answer from within yourself. And when you have that initial reaction to respond to a point of uncertainty or not knowing with connecting to your own self, you will never be lost in life.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us in this reality, we're just craving an answer. We're craving
Yeah.
that sense of like, okay, like we're craving the exhale.
Yeah.
And I think the outsourcing of information and just like grabbing for any answer we can comes from just not understanding and not knowing that we have this divine connection within us where we can receive the answer. The exact answer that you're looking for comes from within yourself. Always.
Yeah.
And maybe you just need a little inspiration from someone to help you activate that. But even when you feel like you got the answer from someone else, it most likely just triggered the answer to come from within your own being. And like I was even on a phone call with a friend yesterday. She was like, I just don't know what to do. I'm like, you know what to do.
Yeah.
Like, you know what to do.
Right.
So many people know what to do, but a lot of the times it's like we're not actually even listening to it because it's like uncomfortable. It's giving us an answer that we don't want to do, or it's just the connection is not as obvious to us because we're
Right.
not in the seat of stillness. We're kind of distracting and just like pulling and grabbing.
Right.
So yeah, we have this divine energy within us that can guide us in life, the inner guidance system. And when you have the knowing and the ability to connect with that, it's life-changing.
Yeah.
I'm curious actually to hear like from you when that point was in your journey. Like, when did you feel like, okay, I actually can connect with myself in this way and it's going to help me? Or maybe it was like a natural thing that you did that you didn't even realize at the moment.
Yeah. What was interesting, what I was going to bring up, and this actually, I guess, relates perfectly to my personal journey with it, but is like once you've developed that, like, it's almost like an intuition confidence, like a confidence of your intuition and your ability to trust yourself, that ripples out to even almost like your confidence in being able to think about things and and like process information, because there's obviously the very clear application of trusting yourself and making your own decisions, as it has to do with things just generally with your life. And then there's the stuff where we feel like we do need to like learn or research this or like consult an expert or ask like a doctor type of like situation. But they're connected because once you have a strong sense of intuition, like reason, logic, thinking that you've sort of like practiced out, then I think you start to feel comfortable with using that filter in those other places. So like with me, it was really through really just as I started to question health institutions, and I did my own research on like the birth control pill, and I just realized it was all bullshit and it was like completely fucking me up. And I just made the decision to like, basically previous to that, I would have always just believed whatever my current like gynecologist was telling me and just let her decide for me what to do with my body. And then I started to get that inkling of like, this is feeling off. This is not feeling correct for me anymore. So I like trusted that intuitive pull and like went down the rabbit hole, did the research, whatever. And then I had the trust beyond that to actually like literally sit. I remember this so vividly, sit in the office of the gyno and be like, I like have just learned all of this about the pill. Is this how it works? Is this how it's affecting my body? Like I basically was like, if A, then B, like, can you just confirm that I'm not like, you know, that this is correct? And she was basically speechless, because I came in A, with the confidence of like, I'm done with the pill and I like trust that this is correct for me. And also I trust my own intellectual capacity to like explain this, which is like a confidence thing. And she was like, yeah, like that's fine. You don't want to do it. You like clearly understand it. Like go off the pill. And so it was interesting because I feel like that was like a two-sided thing of having the intuitive pull and like the intuitive clue to question something and to find my own, you know, answer, and then to do like the critical thinking part of it and to like be a filter of information and discernment, and then to trust it enough to act on it. And I feel like that's how I live my life now, of when, you know, the latest study comes out that it's like, oh, you should be cold plunging. I'm still like, okay, is that right for me? Does it resonate with my authority? Like, logically, does that make sense to me? Okay, yes, it does, but I'm not interested in it and I don't think it's right for my life. Great, boom, decision made, right? So it's like that kind of like double effect where I feel like you get confidence from having the first step of courage to listen and act on an intuitive hit, and then apply like the basically just critical thinking is the best way to put it, to explain it, of, you know, coming to your own conclusion and then feeling confident enough to actually live your life by that, right? Like Milan suggests like, hey, like maybe blah, 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 do this. And I'm like, doesn't resonate with me. I don't like I'm not into that. It doesn't work for me. Great. That's the decision I make. And it's like, the buck stops like at me, because it's not, it's everyone's different. And if it doesn't work, I feel like this is something we were talking about in the, fitness episode, was like, if you're not present, if you're not enjoying it, it's not actually making a difference in your life. And it's kind of like extrapolating that out to all the other things that we are convinced that we're supposed to do for our health and career and whatever. But if it doesn't resonate with you and it doesn't pass your check, it's not it.
You're actually making me think about a thought I had recently where I was like, you know what? I'm convinced that the people that are eating the all meat diet versus the vegans versus all the other different diet fads that are out there, I'm convinced they're all right, because the intention and the belief system that they have behind their action is so strong,
right,
that whatever the hell they're doing is working for them.
Dude, yeah. Basically.
You eat
yes.
bacon every meal and you're healthy? Yeah, that's because you're believing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like,
for
I'm
sure.
convinced that the consciousness and the belief system and the intention behind the action is even more powerful than the actual thing.
Yeah.
And yeah, like connecting what you were saying about cold plunging, like if you, in your head you're like, I don't want to do this doesn't work for me, then like it's gonna be a terrible experience, and it's just like not gonna have the impact that, like, it's just like, why even do it? It doesn't even make sense. Like,
right.
If your authority is saying this isn't right for me, it's not right for
yeah.
you, you know?
And
right. I think it's
It's just nuanced too. It's like everything is layered, obviously, because I was just gonna make a, you know what? I'm not gonna say that. I'm trying to not do just say like a million disclaimers to like satisfy the different arguments against something, but because what we're saying is making sense. It's obvious. Like you can fucking extrapolate out the scenarios where that doesn't apply. But yes, like the whole point is I really
People can use their critical thinking.
yeah, exactly. Use your critical thinking and fucking do your own process.
If something isn't agreeing with you with what we just
you're
said.
allowed to disagree with that. It's fine. But no, it's true. Like obviously
Actually, cold plunging is very, very
yeah, right. Well, it's like, yeah, sure, maybe. Like, here's the thing. It's like when you're so intimately familiar with your intuition and your inner authority, you know the difference between you not wanting to do something out of resistance and out of like fear or just whatever versus you not doing it because it's just not right for you. That is what you want to find out.
Right.
That's where it's like, no, of course I can understand doing hard things. And there's things that I actually, my authority draws me toward that are also hard and difficult, but my authority, my intuition is still telling me to do it. So it's not mutually exclusive that you're only going to want to do things that like resonate with you and make you feel fluffy inside. Like it's not just like that. The whole point is the more you get to know your intuition, you actually realize it's so intelligent and so on point with figuring out what's right for you and what's effective, regardless of the million peer-reviewed studies, etc., which have so much validity, but like you got to pass it through your own filter. For sure.
I actually have another example that I've been on like a journey with recently. When we first moved here, Peter and I've shared, we like started working out at the gym, and I haven't been in a gym. Like I like kind of dabbled in Venice. I went a few times and was like, fuck this, I don't want to go here because it was just a circus. But when we moved to Arizona, Peter had this whole plan of like eating a very protein heavy diet with like all the raw cheese, and like he's just on, you know, that like high calorie, high protein, like bulking up type of diet. And without even thinking or checking in with myself, I just blindly like was eating the exact same meals as him. And I started to very quickly put on weight, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, like how we spoke about. But I just didn't feel, I like had to check in with myself. I'm like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not doing what feels right for me. I'm just doing what's actually efficient and easy for the household. And when we got back from Miami, I actually made a change of like really tuning in with myself, because I even remember the episode we did on food. I was telling you how when he went to Europe, I actually realized that I didn't even want to eat that much meat. It's not like I cut out meat. I literally ate meat for lunch, but I don't need to eat it at every meal. And I'm realizing that I actually feel really good when I mix in like some plant-focused meals with some meat meals.
Right.
And I don't want to have this very like dogmatic way of eating every meal where it has to like be like protein heavy and like, I don't know. Peter was just watching all those videos where it's like men eating off a cutting board, and it's just like the cheese, the fruit, the meat, and he's like fucking eating like chicken breast for breakfast now, and it's just like not my vibe.
Yeah, it doesn't work for you. Don't
and I
do
didn't
it.
even
right. And that's like,
but
it'll be a very clear, like that doesn't interest you, and I think that's for a reason. That actually interests me. So it's like the whole point is to prove like it's all about the gut check, literally, for us, because we're both generators with sacral, of like if it interests you, if it feels right for you, and that you don't need to do it just because like then, you know, I say that I like it and Peter said like it, that's irrelevant. It's about how it makes you feel and how it works for you.
Right. And when I went to that Pilates class, the reformer class, I was really tapping into like my authority and my emotional authority. I was like very hyped up and excited after the class, but I was like, let me like even out and see how I feel about this. And I was so excited about it. And it's just so like fun to use your authority and to like just experiment with it and really hone in on your own personal authority. If you know what it is, go look up your human design authority. And as an emotional authority, like I get really excited about some things, and it's like super obvious to me, like what I'm meant to do.
Right.
And I'm just on this journey of like really listening to that, and I'm just seeing the impact that that's having on my life and like in my day to day. Like imagine you waking up and doing all the things that you just get excited about. Like your day would be like fucking incredible.
Right. And then that's actually really healthy. Like that's the whole point, is like the energy behind it.
Then my stress levels are down.
Right. Yeah.
All my hormones are balancing.
Right.
Like it's
yeah, exactly. So
amazing.
Key. So key. Yeah. I just ultimately, I think the goal of this episode was just to be a really, really powerful reminder of just having the courage to be like, you know what? Everyone else seems to like this or finds that that's working for them, and I don't like it and it doesn't work for me. Done. And just be your own freaking authority and trust that you have the capacity, you have the intellect, you have the intuition, you have the critical thinking skills, you have everything you need to make the life that you want and to make decisions according to what works for you. Nobody else gets to tell you what to do with your life, even if they're a world-renowned astrophysicist with 18 fucking awards. It doesn't matter. If it does not work for you, goodbye. Okay? And use your discernment, use your nuance and your beautiful thinking skills to figure out what's right for you. But come back inside, inward, and figure out the basics before you then let everybody else dictate your life. You're your own fucking authority. Mic drop.
Preach.
And if you want to disagree with me on that, that's fine too.
I'll go fuck myself.
Goodbye.